was just a curious kid.
Obviously, you were living a secretive life because being in a Mormon household, had they found out, your parents found out, you would probably be in trouble?
Oh, heck yeah. So my first time really being intoxicated, I was 13.
Auntie.
Welcome to Peji's Recovery Corner. This is a recovery podcast where we talk about all things recovery. Recovery from what? From addiction, from alcoholism, from mental health. Before we start, if you could please subscribe to the channel, which is on Peji Interventions. And also, if you could please like and share this, we'd like to get a message of hope out to as many people as we possibly can. I have a very special guest today, Daniel.
Yes, sir.
Pronounce your last name?
Nuno.
Daniel Nuno.
Yeah.
We have been talking about having you on the podcast for quite some time. I know you're friends with my buddy Joey, and you saw him on here. And I actually have been watching your stuff online for a while now. I'm a fan.
Oh, cool.
You're a good guy.
Thanks,
You're
man.
a good. You're a very good man. Welcome to the corner.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're excited. I mean, I was really excited to. I saw Joey on here. I saw Satch on here from like a few years ago.
Satch came on a long time ago. Yep.
But I feel like I met up with Joey again right after he was on your podcast, and then he's like, "Yeah, it's gonna be on sometime soon or something like that." Because is it same day? Like, do you show it at the same time? Or?
No, it depends. You know,
Okay.
we go live usually, and but it depends on the day, depends on the guest and when they can come on. But I'm glad you made it finally.
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much. I know we had some different conflicts,
Yeah.
some hospital sessions on both ends.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you got busy, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
That's a very important thing to talk about because that's one of the miracles that comes out of getting sober. But anyway, let's hear about you, Daniel. So, who are you? Where were you born? Where were you raised? And what was your upbringing like before you got into things?
Before I got into things, that's a great question. So, I was born in Willits, California. Willits is in Mendocino County. It's up Northern California. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. I don't really remember Willits. My first memory is when after we moved to Modesto when I was like 2 or 3 years old, and so yeah, I was raised in Modesto. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. I have 4 sisters and a brother.
And when we say 6 kids, was it a Mormon household?
Mormon household, yeah.
I mean, that's 6 is actually a low count usually.
Yeah, we're small, man. We were a small family.
Because I grew up in Utah myself. I told you that, and so we had neighbors that had numerous kids.
Yeah, it's wild. If you go to, and that was kind of like the neat thing about my upbringing is, you know, all the families we went to church with, there were tons of kids. I mean, it's just like, that's part of the culture. That's part of the religion. It's like multiply and replenish the earth is like technically what they say, you know, in the religion. And so, yeah, my parents were converts. So my dad grew up, I want to say grew up Catholic.
Right.
My dad was born in Mexico. My mom wasn't really raised religious, but comes from an Orthodox Jewish lineage, I guess.
Really?
Yeah. My grandma came over to Ellis Island from Poland in the 30s.
Okay.
And was raised Orthodox Jewish. So technically, I'm Jewish because it passes through the mother's, I guess, lineage, but.
They decided to convert at some time. But was this before you were born or right around?
Yeah, so they converted. I want to say maybe my oldest sister or maybe my oldest 2 sisters were just babies, toddlers. They're a couple years apart, so maybe they were very young when my parents converted.
So as far as your childhood growing up, was it a good household? Or, I mean, obviously, when it comes to Mormon values, carrying Mormon values, drugs and alcohol are totally not allowed.
Yeah.
Let alone caffeine and many other beliefs and actions and even cursing for that matter.
Yeah. So I mean, for those of you listening who don't know, in the Mormon religion, I mean, there's something called the Word of Wisdom, which is like abstaining from alcohol, tobacco, like certain teas, and obviously like the Word of Wisdom doesn't include swearing, but like no swearing. You know, you're not supposed to swear really, and yeah, caffeine or red meats, you know, to a certain degree.
Oh, that deep
is a part of it. Yeah, so for me growing up, you know, there were those strict guidelines, and there was just something that I didn't know I just figured like that's how everyone was, like nobody can drink or smoke or whatever until I started like having other friends like in school, and I realized like it was a pretty unique situation.
Right.
But growing up, I mean, my family was awesome. Really, really close family. I would say the Mormon culture in Utah is very different than the Mormon culture outside of Utah, and I can say that
I've heard that
without reservation.
Sure.
I've lived in both.
Yeah.
It's very it's like much more kind of accepting outside of Utah. It's kind of a cooler situation, I feel, because I've lived in both.
Yes.
And I don't like the Utah Mormon culture. Though I'm not active or a member of the church. I'm technically on the books, but I'm not like a member.
At this time.
At this time, yeah, I guess, for today, right? My experience with it was really good. My family was tight in the 80s and 90s. The church was very different. There was a lot of excuse me, there was a lot of like basketball, softball, like a lot of just like sports and like family activities, and tons of kids going around like my age, and scouts and all this other stuff. So it was fun for me, as a young person. Camping, outings. I was like, it was really cool. And my parents were, pretty traditional as far as like my mom stayed home. My dad worked all the time. It almost felt like he was gone all the time.
Right.
Very hard worker. My mom, very strong woman. And so that's kind of how I was raised.
So then down the line, I mean, how old were you when you first started getting into
substances?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
and why?
I think I started getting curious. So those are great questions. I think I started getting curious when I was probably about 12. And me and my best friend, we were just like trying to figure out who we were. Obviously growing up in such a in a Mormon household, those things are like off limits, so I wasn't really exposed to it.
Yeah.
But then I became curious, I was just a young person. I was curious. So when I was 12, we were camping, me and my best friend, Ronnie, we were camping, and we bought like a nickel bag off some dude at the beach. We were up in Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
And bought a nickel bag of some Red Bud, and it was just absolutely disgusting.
I remember Red Bud.
Yeah. It was just, and I think we paid the guy, cause we didn't have $5, so I think we paid him like $4, and he just gave us the bag. We smoked it out of a can. I didn't feel anything. I don't know if Ronnie did, but that kind of got us on the path. We were just kind of curious. I was just a curious kid. I've always been like that. I've always like, two things. I've always wanted to be a part of and accepted, and so whatever that looked like, I just wanted to fit in, and then too, I've just always kind of been curious. So.
I mean, that makes sense. I think that's what most kids do when they want to first experiment with any type of substance. But now, question for you is, obviously you were living a secretive life, because being in a Mormon household, had your parents found out, you would probably be in trouble? Oh,
heck yeah. And my parents did, like, along that path. So my first time really being intoxicated, I was 13. I remember I was young for my grade, so it was prior to me going into high school. So I graduated 8th grade, about to go into high school. My parents left. We had a house party with me and my older sister. She's 2 years older than me. We had a house party. There were booze there. I remember just getting wild, and I like absolutely loved it. There were like older people, so I loved like fitting in with an older crowd, and that's what they were doing. And so if I could do it plus more, they're like, oh yeah, like bring Daniel around, he's cool. And plus I was a bigger kid, so I look older.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I felt like a part of that, kind of a part of that community, the older kids, like the juniors and seniors, even when I was just only 13. Sorry, what was your question? I feel like I kind of went off on a tangent.
No, that's exactly, you were answering the question.
Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah.
So then down the line, obviously after doing that, what did you get into? Besides the weed and the alcohol, did you get into other stuff, or was it just alcohol mainly?
Yeah, I got into other stuff. So, and I'll get into that. But to answer your question, I remember it was were you being secretive? And I was. Yeah, I had to keep it a secret.
Right.
So what it looked like for me, to touch on that, and then I'll touch on the substances, was I would either have to be staying the night at a friend's house. I would have to be going out to something called Rock and Bowl, where we were out to like 2 a.m. You know, when I came home, I'd try not to give my parents a hug and kiss goodnight. Or if I did, I would like breathe in so my mom wouldn't like smell anything on my breath. You know, I had to really like hide it. My parents did find paraphernalia at certain points in my, like when I was like 15 or 16, found like maybe a weed pipe, or maybe found like a bag of weed. And I would just always blame it on other people. So like, and then, you know, my parents, I don't know if they believed me or not, but they kind of just like, we never really addressed it. Like, this is a big deal. You know, this is a big problem.
Right.
So in high school, it was mainly alcohol and weed. Then there was a short period of about 6 years where I didn't do anything.
You just
cold turkey.
Cleaned up.
Yep. 18 to 24, didn't do anything.
Was it just one of those things where you just knew better? You knew it's probably not a way to live, and you're just not going to do it, so you're going to abstain?
Yeah. So, well, actually, what it was for me was I wanted to go on a mission. You know, so I wanted to go on a church mission.
So you were still active in the church and all that?
Yeah. During that time, I was at church
well,
every
then you
Sunday.
definitely shouldn't be doing anything on a mission.
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't know, when there's an active Mormon that's actually doing as the church would like, they go on missions across the world to go and carry the message of Joseph Smith or the Mormonism,
basically, the Church of Jesus. They call it now the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Like they're kind of sticklers about that. But when I was involved, it was Mormons. You're Mormons. So
okay.
So yeah,
just curious. Like when you were active, you would read from the Bible and from Joseph Smith's book?
Yeah, the Book of Mormon. Yeah,
the Book of Mormon.
I would read from both. Yep.
Right.
Yep. I'd read from both. I mean, primarily like the New Testament, you know, more, and the Book of Mormon.
Okay.
So those are.
Does the Book of Mormon basically teach Mormons how to be a proper Mormon?
No, the interesting thing about the Book of Mormon is it's just like very similar to the Bible. What teaches people how to be Mormons is something called the Doctrine and Covenants, which is another book of scripture, and kind of just what they say, you know, it's like what the prophet says at the time. The Doctrine and Covenants are records of what the prophets have said since Joseph Smith, essentially. So, I mean, it's just kind of whatever they say, you know, because the Book of Mormon really doesn't teach the doctrines of what Mormonism is now, other than kind of like your standard gospel stuff, like be a good person, you know, what Jesus Christ taught,
right? Those
type of things. That's kind of what the Book of Mormon is very similar to the Bible in that sense.
It's funny because when I was growing up in Utah, I remember I used to go to seminary class
Did you?
I wanted to learn a little bit of extra about like what all of my peers were going to. Plus, you got school credit. But I remember asking a gentleman who was a brother there, or bishop or something like that. He would say at the front. I asked him one time, "So are Mormons Christians?" And he said, "If you believe in Christ, you're a Christian." That's what he told me.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like that's what I've told a lot of people too.
Yeah. So that was interesting. Okay, so then, so you went on your mission. You needed to act right, do right, be good. During that time, you abstained. You didn't do anything.
Didn't do anything.
Where'd you go on your mission?
I went to Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah. Then what happened?
So I get back from my mission. Excuse me. And I get back into the swing of life. I played football at the University of Utah. I played a year before I left. And
then you went there too.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So I was at the University of Utah, and came back and got back into the swing of life. Thought everything was going to be, you know, just sunshine and rainbows, and it didn't. It wasn't. And so at the age of 24, I was married for a couple of years at the time, and life wasn't what I thought it was going to be. You know, football didn't work out the way I thought it was going to. And, you know, marriage was tough at the time. And so I wanted to hang out with my boys again. And that involved like drinking and smoking. I think I remember making a conscious decision one night. I was like, I'm going to smoke weed.
Yeah.
I feel like smoking weed. So I did. And that kind of took me to smoking a little bit of weed, drinking a little bit. Things weren't really like too crazy in my mind. And maybe they were for other people, but in my mind they weren't. But then they got really crazy once let me kind of go back on my timeline there. They got crazy before I used alcohol as a coping skill for an incident I experienced, but and that involved me using opiates. So I got into opiates.
What kind of opiates?
What kind you got? No, anything that was
Pills?
prescription. Yeah, anything that was prescription.
Real prescription opiates?
Real prescription.
None of this. Well, back then there probably wasn't any.
There
of this,
wasn't. There
any
wasn't.
Of this,
not this
cut stuff.
No, thank God, man.
Press pills. And,
yeah, it's so dangerous right now. It's like. It's
really even getting
scary.
into that though, during that time when you were doing those, were you drinking with it?
I was, yeah.
Okay, and were you? How were you getting those? Were they prescribed, or were you buying them from?
Yeah, so they were prescribed to somebody. That person,
they just weren't prescribed to you.
No, never to me. But I would get them from somebody. My intention was to just sell them, and then we were supposed to split the profits.
And now you were getting kind of like into this, like knee deep.
Yeah. I'm in the mix of it.
And you're in your mid-20s at this time?
Yep, I was about 24 at the time.
Okay.
And then it eventually turned to just me paying for half of them because I was using them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was needing like Suboxone. I was purchasing from other people. I was doing anything I can to get opiates.
Needing Suboxone because sometimes you wanted to quit and you didn't want to kick?
Well, sometimes I couldn't get a hold of more.
So you just got the subs to be able to maintain.
To hold me over.
Hold you over and not make you fall apart.
Yeah, because that withdrawal was so terrifying to me. It was like so extremely scary.
And so obviously if they weren't prescribed to you and the Suboxone wasn't prescribed to you either, was it just somebody that happened to have a supply of these things?
Yeah. So it was
plug.
It was the plug.
Yeah.
It was the homie hookup. You know, it was people that knew what it was. They knew like
the so-called homie hookup.
Yeah.
just looking out for you so you don't go through it.
Well, the interesting thing is like I know that the person who had sent them to me's intentions were for us just to make money.
Yeah.
And I wasn't telling them what I was doing with them.
So you were supposed to be making money, but you were also using the product.
Yeah, so I was supposed to be making money. So let's say he sent me 200 pills. I was supposed to sell 200 and we split the profits on them. But it got to the point where he was sending me 200 and I was just using them all. And then I was paying him as if I was selling the whole thing. And I was just never saying anything. I never told him that I was using them. So he was unaware.
You certainly weren't active in the church at the time, correct?
Or
no. Were you?
No, I mean, I think I did like certain church things.
Still?
Probably. I mean, kind of like, it's just kind of a cultural thing. I was living in Utah at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine I was going to church, you know, and participating in certain things, but yeah, definitely not like living.
Yeah. Your spirit wasn't active in the church.
No.
Yeah.
My spirit wasn't active.
Your spirit was getting lifted in other ways.
Yeah.
So you had this opiate run. Did you do any other stuff?
Adderall, prescription stuff. Adderall, Valium.
Was the Adderall prescribed to you?
It was. Yeah.
Okay. And that was just the focus?
Focus. Yeah, but I would abuse it. So I would get like a 30-day supply and I'd use it up in a week or two.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what was the other one?
Like Valium or benzodiazepines.
And those were to take the edge off?
Yeah. You mix them.
Were those prescribed?
They were, yeah. But again, I would take a month supply
in excess
in a week. Yeah.
So you were abusing substances.
Always.
Plain and simple.
Yeah, man.
I mean, once you're addicted, that's what we do. We abuse. We don't do it as needed.
Well, and the interesting thing is like I had multiple seizures and I never knew why, but it was because I would stop taking my benzos.
Oh, I was going to say, was the seizures because of the benzodiazepines?
Yeah.
And that is did you not know?
I didn't know
that you could seize up.
I didn't know. I had no clue.
You were just coming off of this probably, and you probably didn't have more.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah.
So I would take, like I said, a month's worth in a week or 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden I'm in an ambulance because I had a seizure, and I just would wake up in one.
And for those that don't know, benzodiazepines as well as alcohol, if somebody takes them in excess and they come off of it and they are not properly detoxed, there is the chance of it could be fatal. I mean, they could definitely have a seizure, they could seize up, and as a result of it, possibly die. Yep.
Yeah, which is so dangerous. I mean, it's something that we're highly aware of now. But for me, and I was even
When you don't know.
in my 20s, I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And I easily could have died any of those times. I mean, I was using so much. And if I had more, I would have used more, you know.
So how did life go on? Because I know you're 6 years sober now.
Yeah.
And so obviously if you're 40 years old, then you got sober at 34.
Yeah.
So between, let's say, your mid-20s until 34 and all this stuff that you're talking about, what more happened?
So one of the biggest things that happened in my life that kind of like propelled my alcoholism to just like oblivion, where I was seeking oblivion and just trying to get completely out of my mind and forget everything, was so my ex-wife had an affair with a super close friend of mine, someone I considered a brother. And at the same time, I got excommunicated from my church.
I was waiting for that part.
Yeah.
Why did they excommunicate you? They got knowledge that you weren't a full deck?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
You weren't living up to their standards?
Yeah, well, the reality is we went in to deal with her infidelity. You know, I was like, oh, we're going to take care of her. My mind was all over the place.
You cheated, let's let them know?
Yeah, let's go tell, you know.
And what did she do? Turn that around on you?
Well, no, she went through the process, you know, the right way, but then, you know, the questions were posed like, you know, is there anything that you need to repent for? And so I just unloaded. I'm like, yeah, of course, these are all the things, but let's just focus on her right now.
Yeah.
You know, don't worry about me. But they're like, hold on, that's also a problem. And so we actually both got excommunicated at that time.
Wow.
And so that was extremely difficult for me. You know, at the time I didn't have the coping skills like we have now that we learn in recovery.
Sure.
So I didn't have the coping skills to navigate like a broken family, like a broken foundation, like with my religion.
Yes.
And broken friendships, you know, that was too much for me. So I was just, at that point, I was just seeking to die, man. Like, honestly, you know, I had many nights where I was just like, you know, if I don't wake up in the morning,
I hate my life.
If I don't wake up in the morning, all the better. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to remember this. I don't want to think of this.
And I believe a lot of active addicts that really don't even know they're making it to the end of the rope feel that a lot and wonder like, what's wrong?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, I had no clue like that, those thoughts that I had in those really extremely dark times, that probably was like 3, 4 years, 5 years maybe. And that was even a few years before I got sober, you know, that I was having those nights.
So did you decide obviously to go to treatment, or did you attempt to get sober between 25, let's say, and 34?
Yeah. So, I mean, I had tried, so probably between 25 and 30, there was just nothing that was even like in my awareness of needing to get help. Yeah. It was just trying to get out of my mind, essentially. Right. Just drinking, using to oblivion. Right. To the point where I can forget everything. And I was literally just trying to erase my memory because I was living in resentment. I was living those.
You didn't have kids with her, did you?
No.
Okay.
No. Though we had tried, you know, in my culture, that was a big thing to have kids. And we just never did, you know. And
so what about between 30 and 34?
30 and 34, I had tried so many different things. None of them ever.
What'd you try?
So I made negotiations with myself. So I tried things in my head that I thought were good ideas, like let me switch to wine, see if I could kind of because I was drinking whiskey. Right. Let me switch to wine. Oh, let me switch to beer. But in every instance, I would drink till I was like completely out of my mind. It was a box of wine. Right. You know, have you ever drank a box of wine in one night?
I have actually, but
it's crazy,
I understand.
Dude.
I know.
What the heck?
Yes.
So those were my negotiations. Or like, I'm gonna get back into fitness. If I drink tonight, then I have to work out in the morning.
Yeah.
Or if I work out today, then I
I've
get to
done all
drink
that.
tonight. So it
all
was
that.
my own head
This is
trying
me-
to figure it out.
When you rationalize with yourself, when you justify with yourself, when you come up with plans of how can I navigate my addiction and still make sense to where it's not really as bad as it might be
Yeah.
by doing other things like being active or working out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy because like my own mind was thinking it up. And then I was like, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And then I was just in that same cycle.
Right.
Like I could never get out of it because my mind was the addicted mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the addicted thought. And then it kept me in that cycle. I couldn't think my way out of where I was at.
Makes sense. Okay. So by the time you were 34, what brought you to your knees? What made you want to really get the help that you needed to get?
So it was Thanksgiving, 2017.
Yeah.
I got a letter from my company telling me I was fired for not showing up to work multiple days in a row. No call, no show. That's what they call it.
Yeah.
And it was true. I didn't call and I didn't show. I started using opiates. I was withdrawing.
Mm-hmm.
I was at my parents' house, not drinking at their house for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But all I was thinking while everyone was having conversations was when can I get to my vehicle to drink? Because I have alcohol in there.
Not drinking at their house because obviously if it's a Mormon household and it's Thanksgiving, like nobody's drinking. Right?
Yeah, no one's drinking.
So you just were like on the edge of your seat, just waiting for it to be able to leave.
Oh man, I couldn't wait till there was a break in the conversation. And you're talking like wholesome conversation or just people talking and having a good time and just being with each other.
Do you think they knew you weren't well?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my mind at the time didn't think that. I didn't think that they knew.
You thought you were playing it off.
Yeah. No, they were aware.
Yeah.
They were aware I was struggling.
I think like a mother's intuition.
Moms know, dude.
Oh, they look in your eyes and they know if you're well.
They're like,
They can hear it in your voice.
Yeah.
Let alone if you're like there just in front of them, the body language says it all.
And to my parents' credit, they never like attempted to push me into like a corner. But also maybe it would have been good for them to address, certain things. But it's difficult as a parent.
Yeah.
Like it's difficult as anybody who sees someone else in active addiction. Like, how do you navigate that?
Right.
Which is, your profession, which is where you're able to really help families and help individuals because it's such a delicate process.
It is.
And like most people, to be fair, go about it completely the wrong way, which is like the enabling path,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like the best thing someone can do for someone that they love is create those boundaries and have like a clear, but it takes somebody. It almost takes somebody to give the parents permission to have hard boundaries for them to feel good about moving forward.
Yep. Well, then let's talk about once you went. Did you go to rehab?
I did. Yeah.
Did you go to rehab in Utah or where?
So that day, I told my mom I need help.
That was on Thanksgiving.
It's Thanksgiving, 2017.
2017.
So we call, and I'm just thinking, I've never even thought of rehab. I never thought of any 12-step stuff. That was just not in my, awareness. And so I just Googled rehab Utah at the time. It's not something I had ever considered before is my point. But, so I called and they're like, are you interested in coming to California? And I'm like, heck yeah, I'd love to come to Southern California.
Right.
So I went out to Southern California and my whole plan, because as you know, like I had made these plans of stopping and couldn't quite figure it out.
Right.
So I continued to make plans for myself. And my plan was to go and do 30 days and then return home and I'll have a free pass. Everyone will forgive me. Life will go on as normal.
The disease of addiction doing its thing.
Yeah, dude. Isn't that wild?
The decision maker.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know what's good for my life. It's funny to look back and laugh, but that's absolutely where I was. I'm still driving.
So did you went to treatment for 30 days or more?
More.
How long?
Over 90.
And in that 90-day period, did you make a decision that you really need to stay sober 100?
Yeah. So when I initially got in, again, I was driving. They only had 45, 60, and 90-day options when I went into the detox.
Right.
And I made the behavioral health technician write in 30 for me because it had to be 30. That's all I'm agreeing to.
As many do.
Yeah. So it has to be this,
That's right.
no other way. So when I was in there about 2 weeks, it was avid, at least taking us to 12-step program,
Sure.
12-step meetings. I had a moment of clarity between that and some other facilitators who I really connected with, who were in recovery. And I committed, I slowly committed. I committed to 60 days. Then when I was getting close to 60, I'm like, I'm going to just stay the full time. And during that time, I was like, I'm going to commit a year to myself in Southern California because I love the recovery community. I love the 12-step meetings that I'm going to.
Which city, which area were you in?
I was in Orange County. I was in Newport.
Newport, that area is it's like a hub for good recovery.
Yeah, it's so good. I was in, there were certain ones also in like, where was it at? I want to say it was like a Saddleback. It was like near Saddleback.
Yeah, South OC.
Yeah. So there were some good meetings out there. But my main ones were in the Newport area.
Nice.
Those are my main ones. And then I connected with people that I looked up to, had more years of recovery than me. And I started asking other people, as suggested, when I had thoughts or original ideas, what they thought about it. For suggestions, I started running things past people.
And that's actually everything you're saying right now, I very much relate to. That's kind of the way I got sober. I went in with a 30-day idea. 30 days I need to be, even though I'm homeless, I'm going to just stay 30 days.
Yeah.
But the progression, the things that happen during that time, the experiences, the hearing things that are good for us to hear, everything from group facilitators to case managers to going to meetings and hearing people share stuff and then running things by people. I did the same because I was very on the fence with the whole God idea. So I thought, why don't I ask these people what their relationship with their higher power is? Why don't I ask these people what they think about if I go out with a newcomer chick or things like that, right? Yeah. But over a period of time, like when you get people that are guiding you in the right direction, you realize that God actually puts angels in your path. And if you don't listen to them, and keep listening to this, you may very well be on your way out. Yeah. So you stayed sober.
I stayed, man. I stayed, dude. And
you're here to stay, it seems.
And I'm here today. I'm here.
Yeah.
I got a sponsor in my 12-step program. I worked the steps of my 12-step program. I still have a sponsor. He knows he's my sponsor.
Do you think the treatment that you received too was great for your recovery?
100%. It was highly necessary because what I can say is when I got into a treatment program, I immediately felt like the obsession and like the weight of the obsession like lifted because I was in a place where like I couldn't get what I had wanted. I couldn't get my substances, and I was almost like there was a lot of accountability there. So for me, that was like so necessary. And then I also felt safe about the detox process. Like I wasn't just trying to do it on my own because that was a big fear I had too. Yeah. And as you know, or you're probably aware, I know for myself, fears played a big part of my life and why I navigated things a certain way. I was living in a lot of fear. And so it was just like a safe place. I knew there was accountability. It was monumental for my initial recovery.
Wonderful. Question for you. Besides the personal development that we can gain in the treatment process as well as the 12-step process, how soon within your recovery were you in service of others? What was it taught to you to be in service of others and to get out of self and think about others?
That's a really good question. Let me think about that for a second.
Because for me, like I remember the sponsor was basically saying, hey, bud, just so you know, you don't just come and be a potted plant in a meeting. Like you should get your hand raised. You should talk to the secretary of the meeting. You should start doing some service work, whether it's greeting at the door or
Yeah.
becoming the coffee maker, or setting up the chairs or breaking down the chairs, or just talking to somebody that's got less time than you. Maybe if you have 60 days and that guy's got 6 hours,
Yeah.
putting your hand out to him. Do you remember any of
Oh,
that
heck
stuff?
yeah. So, I mean, I don't know when it was. The reason why I want to think about it, because I don't know when it was actually like taught to me,
Yeah.
but I feel like it landed with me pretty early. I don't know if someone like directly said that or if it was just said in a meeting,
Yeah.
but or if it was said at my rehab.
Right.
I don't really remember the person who said it,
Yeah.
but I do remember setting up chairs, taking down chairs,
Yeah.
greeting, asking for a commitment. You know, that was highly important, because the one thing I recognized when I had like even a few weeks sober, and I was like reading this book, and I was like, I can relate to this dude who also struggled with the same thing I struggled with, you know, and this book was written, you know, almost 80 years before I even came along, and I'm like, dude, this guy's like reading my mind. He's having the same experiences as me. This
Right.
is like so crazy. Um, the one thing I recognize is like, to just do kind of what other people are telling me to do. And that's where I was at. I was like completely beaten down by life.
Yeah.
I was completely willing. I did not, I was like so scared to go back to my old life, because I had some clarity at that point. I had a couple weeks sober. You know, I could see that my life wasn't the shit that I thought it was. I thought I was freaking tight. You know, I thought like, oh, everything's great. I'm renting a room at a friend's house. I just got fired. I'm freaking either in a toxic relationship or not in a relationship.
Yeah.
I'm out of my mind. I can't be like, I'm just recognizing all these things once I had this clarity. And I'm just like so scared to go back. And so I just really like latch on to what people tell me, you know, and I almost felt like a toddler in that sense.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that,
We're
like,
being spoon fed.
I'm just going to do whatever you're doing.
Yeah. To learn.
I just want to do that because I'm so scared of that life that I was living.
Well, the second that you actually got here today, you were on the phone, and I heard you talking to somebody. It was recovery talk, right?
Yeah.
So I admire that. I want to ask you a couple more questions, and then we'll close it out. But I was wondering, as being excommunicated by the Mormon Church, did you resent the church when you were new, or did you understand that they had every right to do that?
So even like when it happened, I don't think I had, you know, enough self-love for myself to be like, hey, maybe this isn't right, you know?
Yeah.
I just kind of accepted it. I actually got rebaptized early in recovery.
Right.
And that was kind of like a part of my spiritual path. That was something I was familiar with.
In the Mormon Church?
Into the Mormon Church.
Okay.
That was something I was familiar with, you know? And
that's the thing. You can get rebaptized?
You can get rebaptized, yeah. Wow. Yeah. But as far as the resentments go, I feel like I've had like a healthy faith transition, you know? And I can tell you when it really dawned on me. So, and I don't think I've shared this really with anybody.
Yeah.
So my wife, who's highly supportive and always has been highly supportive of me.
This wife, your current wife.
My wife, yeah.
Yes, your wife right now.
Yep.
Okay.
Alana. She has always been highly supportive of me and highly supportive of my recovery, to the point where she was like, if you need a year to do your recovery thing, and we can reconnect in a year, because I know, you know, that is the most important thing.
That's awesome.
So she was on the same page as me.
Yeah.
Always supported me being Mormon.
Yeah.
You know, that's not her story. That's not her past. She's just a spiritual individual, but highly supportive of me.
Nice.
Just a very good soul. And, you know, she would always go to church with me too.
Nice.
And so there were times where she would have certain questions, and my answers would always end with, like, I would only get to the point where I would just say, because it's true.
Right.
You know, and me wanting to give her a better answer, I just started to do more research. And then I started to be like, okay, well, maybe this stuff isn't what I thought it was, you know? And then I just started learning more things, and I'm like, you know what, this isn't something that vibes with me. I started to have like cognitive dissonance. One of my best friends who's same-sex attracted was like, you know, Mormon people are so nice. Maybe one day I'll be a part, you know, maybe one day I'll be Mormon. And in my mind and in my heart, it just broke, because I was like, dude, like, it wouldn't be a good experience.
Yeah.
You know, there's no healthy path for someone who's same-sex attracted to, you know, have a significant other, to love and be affectionate and be intimate with somebody. And that created a cognitive dissonance inside of my soul. And, you know, that's one of the reasons that I just transitioned out. I don't hold resentment. I hold a lot of gratitude for my upbringing, for my, you know, for my religion and what it gave me. And it taught me a lot of good principles, you know, and I highly admire anybody in any religion.
Sure.
You know, something that you're able to be dedicated to and practice on a regular basis. It's for the benefit of mankind.
It's one of the things that obviously when you're in the 12-step process too, especially in Alcoholics Anonymous in the big book, it talks about respecting religions. And that's what I do respect religions because they carry faith. I mean, if any, I don't care if it's any organization, if they truly are trying to tap into something where they can carry some faith into some kind of whatever you want to call it, whether they want to call it Allah or Jesus or anything like that, more power to them. But I myself definitely, my path and journey brought me to just being a God believer.
Yeah.
For a guy that was a non-God believer, both
I'm with you on that,
both,
big dog.
both atheist and agnostic. I was kind of a fraud when I was an atheist and agnostic. Like deep down inside, there is that fundamental idea of every man, woman, and child that there is some kind of higher being, higher source, and so that's where I'm at with it. And I've been good with it, right?
Yeah.
I think Voltaire said, even if God did not exist, it would be necessary to invent him, right? And that's a deep statement. You recently, with your wife, is it Ilana? Is that her name?
Alana, yeah.
Okay, Ilana and you had a baby.
Yeah.
That's why we couldn't get you on a few weeks ago because we had you scheduled, but like suddenly you said my wife's going in labor.
She's
and I
in
thought,
labor, bro. Like,
oh man,
it happened so quick too.
Was it a boy or a girl?
Boy,
Name?
Atlas Knight.
Atlas Knight. What a name!
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How's it? Is that your first kid?
It's my first.
How's it feel?
Okay. So I feel like there are stages of it. Initially, like when they showed him to me, I was like, who does this kid look like? Because I don't know. In my mind, I think I was like envisioning seeing kind of like a mirror image of myself.
Right.
And like newborn babies they look weird, you know? Let's just be fair. They look crazy. So I was like, oh man, who's this thing look like? And so I wasn't feeling like super connected. Obviously I'm protective and caring and the first couple of nights, my wife had a C-section. And so the first couple of nights home and in the hospital, a lot of it was on me, you know, which I'm grateful for. I'm empowered by that. However, I got a little taste of what, you know, moms have to do probably regularly. Yeah. And in my mind, I was thinking, no one should have kids. This is the toughest thing in the world. Like I was literally like so tired. Yeah. And so he's 3 weeks old now. This last week, I mean, like I just find myself holding them and just being like, dude, I love you so much. Like in my mind, I'm just like, dude, I love you so much. Like I'll just like stare at them and it's such a cool feeling. Like it's something I've never felt. And I feel like it's still evolving, kind of like my connection with him.
So powerful. But
it's neat, man. It's cool.
These are the miracles that happen when we get sober. We get to, you know, be a sober parent, have kids. Healthy? Is it a healthy kid?
Healthy baby.
All right, good. And you're healthy.
Healthy.
Not just in physique wise, although you look great. But I can tell you got a healthy heart. Like really, I appreciate you. I love what you're doing for the community. I know you're out there helping lots and lots of people get the help that they need that are struggling and suffering.
Thank you.
And this was a really good episode. It was good to have you on here. If there's any kind of energy that you can put out in the universe for anybody that may be struggling, could you please tell them and just put it out there? Say what you need to say.
All right. So this is what I would say, and it was told to me one time, and I really resonated with it. And when times feel like they're at their darkest and you see no way out, what feels like chance actually means choice. And what I mean by that is, in those moments, if you make the choice to reach out to somebody for help, you'll find it. And so I always felt that there were, you know, my life was just kind of a lot of things that happened to me. And when I made that choice to get help, it completely changed the trajectory of my life. And if you're in those dark places that I've been, that Pej has been, and many of us have been, you have the choice to reach out to somebody, and there is somebody who wants to help you and willing to help you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to the corner. It's so good to have you
so
on
much.
today. And this has been yet another episode of Peji's Recovery Corner. You can find us on YouTube on Pej Interventions. Please subscribe, please share, and please put the message out there that we're here trying to help save lives. Thanks again.